Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Welcome in. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely, and we will be here with you for the next couple of hours from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes, discussing sports of local, regional, and national importance. So, looking forward to sharing our thoughts on the sports landscape with you. Wade, happy hump day.
Happy hump day to you, my friend, and good to be with everybody. We got a jam-packed show, as you mentioned. This is kind of reserved as the, quietest sports day of the year, but I'm impressed with what we got on the docket. We got a lot to cover today.
Yeah, the day after the baseball all-star game typically is that. And again, as we mentioned, this is usually where the ESPYs fall, but for whatever reason, that wasn't the case. The ESPYs kind of jumped the gun last week, so we got even less live stuff coming at you today than usual, but we still got a lot to talk about. In the next hour, we will be visiting with our NASCAR analyst, Heather Williams from WCYB TV out of Johnson City, talking a little bit about Pocono this past weekend, talking a little bit about Indianapolis coming up this weekend. In the next segment, Wade, you ask, we deliver. Matt Brown of ExtraPointsMB.com will be with us in the next segment, and I'm just gonna, if you look up and don't see me, mind your business, because I'm just going to let Matt and Wade get into EA Sports College Football 25. I'm sure they were two of the 800,000 that were on there Monday night. What's that number now, Wade?
I think last night it was at 650, the last game. I don't want to brag, but I won my last game of the night. South Carolina knocking off Missouri in a big battle of SEC powers. But it was still going strong at around 600,000 active users, and that's at like 11 p.m. at night last night.
So if South Carolina beat Missouri, then does Missouri have to find something different to go by than Columbia?
Yeah. The long
loser leave town, loser lose town.
The long Cold War of the two Columbia schools came to a head last night, and I feel bad for whatever C. Kirkpatrick 1991 or something like that was the guy's username that I played. But it was a good game. I got lucky, caught a couple nice touchdowns on my tight end to put the game to bed. So we won't mention the 4 losses that happened before then. We'll just forget about all those. But it was a good night on the digital gridiron.
How did it happen that you were playing at South Carolina?
Somebody had beaten me on Monday night pretty handily with South Carolina. And so I said, let me see what they're talking about here. And so,
let me see what the Gamecocks are talking about.
And it's kind of wild. And Matt will get into this too, but the way the online hierarchy goes, you get more points for beating a higher ranked team with a perceived lesser team. And so I picked South Carolina, hoping somebody would have, like a Georgia or Ohio State or whoever. Mm-hmm. And I would have got enough points to advance to like the next rung in this kind of ladder system they have. But then my opponent randomly had picked Missouri. And so we just had a good old fashioned Columbia battle, like you said.
Okay. Well, yeah, looking forward to speaking with Matt, just kind of getting the pulse on some stuff on the sports business landscape in the next segment. Again, we'll have Heather Williams in the second hour talking some NASCAR. We'll be talking real live college football as well later in the show as the SEC football media days continue out in Dallas. Day 3 today. We'll be talking a little bit about the All-Star game from last night and some aspects thereof. Also, we had quite a nice representation from Middle Tennessee in the Major League Baseball draft that wrapped up yesterday, and we'll touch a little bit on that here later in the show. So good stuff to get into, and I guess, Wade, we should go ahead and get into it with yesterday's result and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the Rundown.
To the rundown we go, folks. Here are results from yesterday. Major League Baseball, the All-Star game breaks in favor of the American League. No home field advantage in play anymore, but the AL certainly has bragging rights after a 5-3 victory over the National League. in that All-Star game again last night. Trio of WNBA scores last night. It was Seattle knocking off Los Angeles 89-83. The Liberty took care of the Sun 82-74. And the Sky rally for a 93-85 victory over the Las Vegas Aces as a good win for Cardoso and Angel Reese and the Sky, Mo. 93-85, they knock off the Aces.
And former Hillsborough and University of Tennessee standout Isabel Harrison as well, playing for the Sky. So yeah, that's a big win for them. The Aces had been rolling. Today's schedule right now, late, the Minnesota Lynx up 84-79 on the Atlanta Dream with less than 20 seconds to play. In fact, that one will probably be going final here any second. We may get it before we get done. 6:30 tip tonight. The Fever is at the Wings. That's Indiana at Dallas. That's a 6:30 start on ESPN. Wonder if anybody will be dipping out of SEC Media Days to go check that out. On the pitch, over at Geodis Park tonight, 7:30, the Nashville Soccer Club takes on the Orlando City Soccer Club. You can see it on Apple TV and on FS1. I was trying to stall for a final on the Dream and the Lynx, but we're not going to get it. So that is your rundown. Your top story brought to you, as always, by Piggly Wiggly over in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check them out for their delicious daily deli lunch options available until 6 p.m. every day. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And I thought this was interesting on a number of fronts. It was announced late yesterday, I guess, that Lindsey Harding has been named to the coaching staff of JJ Redick and the Los Angeles Lakers. She becomes the first women's assistant coach in the history of the Lakers, but this is no gimmick, y'all. Lindsey was G League Coach of the Year this past season for her work with the Stockton Kings, the Sacramento Kings affiliate in the G League. They were the number one seed out of the West in the G League and made it into the semifinals of the G League playoffs under Coach Harding, who previously played in the WNBA and at Duke. And she becomes not just the first women's assistant for the Lakers, but the fourth currently in the NBA, joining former University School of Nashville standout Jenny Busek with the Pacers, Brittany Donaldson with the Hawks, and Sonia Rahman with the Memphis Grizzlies as women currently coaching on NBA staffs. Again, it's great to see this.
Good to see, and obviously a just hiring when you're talking about, the G League Coach of the Year coming in to a staff that has we've already kind of praised some of the moves that outside of Redick's hire that the Lakers have made with adding a couple nice assistants that basically have head coaching resumes, and now you add another piece of the puzzle to that. And the cool thing is, too, is reading up on Harding a little more. Her and JJ going back to kind of days when she was with the 76ers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back even further, I didn't even know this, but they were both at Duke at the same time. They both were All-Americans. Yeah, so, they got some history. And, I'm imagining some pickup games at Duke would have been pretty fun to watch between those two. Maybe captaining the two teams or even playing on the same team. But, the Lakers have made some real questionable moves this offseason, both in terms of coaching and roster makeup. But they've made a couple nice moves in those regards, too. And this feels like a nice move for LAL.
Harding was Naismith Player of the Year in 2007. She was the number one pick in the 2007 WNBA draft. played 9 years with 6 teams in the WNBA. In addition to playing overseas, she was hired by the Philadelphia 76ers as a scout in 2017. First African-American woman to hold a full-time scouting position in the NBA, excuse me, and was later named as a player development coach with the Sixers, named as an assistant with Sacramento 2 years later, and had been in that organization up until now. So again, nice move on the part of the Lakers. She joins a staff under JJ Redick that also includes former NBA head coaches Nate McMillan and Scott Brooks and Greg St. John. So he's got some experience on the bench with him, much needed given his comparative lack thereof. So
Absolutely. And I saw this clip last night. I don't know who made this. Maybe producer Mark can find it at some point. But someone had a great tweet, and it said, "This is the real JJ Redick Lakers offense." And we've talked a lot about video games already today. Somebody had recreated JJ Redick in a suit and tie, and it's him running the offense for the Lakers. So you see actually JJ wearing a suit and tie out there playing while everybody else is in real uniforms. It's pretty funny because that's kind of how it feels like, right? It feels like he's kind of still a player out there in many regards, and he knows the ins and outs. But does he have the extra kind of chops that go with being a head coach? And I guess time will tell or answer that question for us as this year goes on.
You know, and you can know the ins and outs, but being able to, communicate those ins and outs to the folks that actually have to execute said ins and outs is, the devil is kind of in the detail as far as that goes. And so I think the best you can be about JJ Redick as head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, I think, is cautiously optimistic.
It's probably fair, but let's also remember that, yeah, he's hired as the head coach, but he's really hired for one reason, and that's to keep a certain guy on the team happy. And the cool thing for him is LeBron is basically as close to a player coach as you could really get. And so as long as you keep LBJ happy, for him personally and for the other guy that's on that team now, JJ should be in okay shape. But yeah, we've seen that situation turn awry. Looking at you, Milwaukee, from last year, so it'll be an interesting ride the first year of the JJ Redick experience in Los Angeles.
And when it goes sideways, boy, does it go sideways. Ask Adrian Griffin, as you were saying. Wade, here's the first thing that I thought about. And maybe I'm a little twisted, I don't know. But the first thing I thought about when I saw Lindsey Harding had been named to JJ Redick's staff with the Los Angeles Lakers. You remember about 3 weeks or so ago, right after JJ was named coach of the Lakers, where it came up that he had used a racial slur toward an African-American woman on campus back at Duke? We've not heard a whole lot about that since those first few days, but I wonder how much of this was aimed at trying to give him some cover as far as that goes.
Yeah, that's a fascinating thought process that goes into that, right? How much of that was a little PR damage control, or let's kind of make sure this kind of doesn't turn into a bigger story than it did. And
right.
Yeah, and unfortunately, in this day and age, these type of situations do get resolved that way. And so, yeah, that's a question that's certainly worth asking, or at least wondering about.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me a little validity there on that way. Our secondary top story, we saw this late yesterday evening, I guess, or I saw it and passed it along to you and producer Mark. Golf Digest, or golf.com, I guess, has an article. Tiger Woods jabs Colin Montgomery with 6 sentences and a smirk. apparently, Colin Montgomery in the run up to this week's, well, I guess last week was when he actually broached this. Some kind of way Tiger Woods came on Colin Montgomery's radar, and Montgomery decided to make some comments regarding Tiger's ability to compete at this point, I guess. There was an interview published last Friday by the Times, and basically Montgomery was just wondering why he was playing at Pinehurst. He said, I hope people remember Tiger as Tiger was, the passion and the charismatic aura around him. There is none of that now. At Pinehurst, he did not seem to enjoy a single shot, and you think, well, what the hell is he doing? He's coming to Troon, and he won't enjoy it there either. Woods 48 has long said he will call it a day when he is no longer competitive, to which Montgomery said, aren't we there? I'd have thought we were past there. There's a time for all sportsmen to say goodbye, but it's very difficult to tell Tiger it's time to go. Obviously, he still feels he can win. We are more realistic. Man, I read that and I kind of thought about the scene from Remember the Titans where Gary Bertier tells the assistant coach, I'm hurt. I ain't dead. And Tiger kind of took the same tact. I'll play as long as I can play. This was from earlier this week at Troon when Tiger was asked about first he was asked about his competitive nature or his ability to be competitive, and then someone put a finer point on the conversation. I'll play as long as I can play, and I feel like I can still win the event. He was then asked, you've given so much to this game, you've given so much to this championship, but you know there was comments last week from Colin Montgomery who said, why is he here? He should retire. There's no point to this. Do you feel that's a bit hurtful and you've earned the right to make the decision when you decide? Tiger's response, well, as past champion, I'm exempt until I'm 60. Colin's not. He's not a past champion, so he's not exempt. So he doesn't get the opportunity to make that decision. I do. So when I get to that age, when I get to his age, I still get to make that decision where he doesn't. Tiger in a don't call for me unless I send for you mood over at Royal Troon this week. I mean, why, if you're Colin Montgomery, do you even choose to go there?
Yeah, I'm certainly wondering that because, I mean, you're still talking about one of the most beloved golfers in the history of the sport. And you're not really going to win that battle.
You're not going to win that battle, no matter how right you may be.
And he is right, which is the messed up part. But he is right. But the court of public opinion, to which I'm siding with on this point, the two things can be true at once. He can be right.
Yes.
Tiger can absolutely roast him, and we will all crack up about it. And that's exactly what he did. And Tiger's, over his entire career, his press conferences are some of my favorites because just the way he delivers certain things, and especially kind of blunt remarks or wisecracks like this, I feel like he just does it better than anybody else. And so, you're maybe thinking he gets fired up, he gets real emotional and kind of, worked up into a fervor or whatever. And he just says,
it's very deadpan.
No, well, I'm a past champion, so I'm exempt till I'm 60. Colin's not. He doesn't get to make that call. I mean, boom,
I do.
Down.
Yep.
Shut down right there. And that smirk, you're right, is I mean, I haven't even seen the actual clip of the conference, but I can picture him. He just has that eating grin better than anybody on the planet. And man, I love this. This is
there it is.
This is vintage Tiger is what this is right here. I mean, just he can shut you down with the best of them.
And here's the thing. Whatever physical condition Tiger Woods is in, he still moves the needle. And if he is playing on Sunday, people are going to watch. And, I'm not sure that you can say that about Colin Montgomery. So
Colin Montgomery late in a major, big whoop. I'm not really tuned in too much. Tiger late in a major, yeah, give me all of that, no matter where he's at on the leaderboard.
So, maybe Colin should just sit there and eat his food. I don't know. Let's take a break here from the Lee Company studios on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return, we will visit with Matt Brown of ExtraPointsMB.com, talking a little EA Sports College Football 25, and let's see who he's been playing as when we come back after this break.
Bluegrass Auction Associates is hosting another estate auction in White House, Tennessee on Saturday, July 20th at 10 a.m. Join Bluegrass as they sell the Judy Matthews Honeycutt Estate, conveniently located in the scenic Orchard Park subdivision. This beautiful estate includes both real estate and personal property, so everything must go. Everything will be sold on-site and in person, and a 10% buyer's premium is added to the final bid. So bid with confidence with Bluegrass Auction Associates, committed to excellence.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Wild and Wacky Wednesday continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. In our final segment, we will be bringing you the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from across the globe, so be sure and stay tuned for that. Before we get to our guests, want to mention... Referring back to the rundown, it was the Minnesota Lynx 86, the Atlanta Dream 79. That's now a final in WNBA matinee action today. And the biggest news, I guess, Ryan Howard, 15 points in 23 minutes off the bench in that loss for the Dream. So still not sure where she stands in terms of the Team USA 3-on-3 Olympic team heading to Paris, but she is back from that ankle scare, apparently, at least for the Dream. So that's good news. Mm-hmm. We are now joined, as we promised, by Matt Brown of extrapointsmb.com. And Matt, are those bags under your eyes from a lack of sleep from playing EA Sports the last couple of nights, or what's up?
There's been a little bit of that, my friends. We also had to file a story for The Guardian, which ran yesterday. I filed a good 3,000 words for a formal review of the game for Polygon, which I think may run later this week when the game formally releases to everybody. It's about Mint. I did have to go tell my wife and children, Daddy does need to play 22 hours of college football video games over the next 4 days for work.
For work,
which is true. So yeah, there is a monster in my hands. I'm going on vacation later this week. I definitely think I've earned it.
So are you the most well paid? Are you the most famous gamer there is, Matt?
Definitely. I know there are gamer people out there that are making more money than a lot of professional athletes at this point. Definitely not anywhere near in that category. It's been a strange couple of years because I don't consider myself a capital G gamer. I casually enjoy video games, but it's not my defining hobby. It's certainly not a defining part of my professional career. But I have been writing about this project more than probably anybody else over the last 3 years. I've broken a lot of news on it. I've developed, working professional relationships with a lot of developers, a lot of people inside EA Sports. And so I get associated with this project. So it's surreal to see it finally come out. It's surreal to actually be playing the game. My name's in the credits. I could, see some of the things that I've been writing about for 2 years kind of come together. But I'm also excited to do some other things and kind of pass the torch to maybe the YouTube game community. Because if you're coming to me for advice on how to get good at the game, my friend, you are calling the wrong guy. You should go talk to somebody who doesn't have small children right now.
We talked to Middle Tennessee State radio play-by-play announcer Chip Walters yesterday. We typically talk to him weekly, and MTSU was, I guess, newsworthy with regards to the game because there were some irregularities between their uniforms and what their uniforms should be, I guess. Is that fair, Wade? Is that about right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, MTSU last year versus Alabama had a jersey malfunction, for lack of a better term, and they thought they got away with wearing some backup jerseys that were locally screen printed. And the next day, the developers from EA sent them a note and said, hey, we noticed these jerseys are different than the ones that you provided us. And so EA Sports noticed that MTSU had different jerseys on. And we found it fascinating, Matt, that the level and the commitment and attention to detail from these guys was so much so that they realized that MTSU was wearing a different set of jerseys, and all they were plain white jerseys, but they knew they were different somehow.
MTSU, not Georgia, not Oregon. With all due respect to our alma mater, they noticed that MTSU was not properly uniformed.
When you play this game, you can, if you want to sit down there and play as Tulane, right? G5 team, not a team with deep football tradition in my lifetime, certainly like the pre-1960s, but not a whole lot recently. I want to say there's like 8 or 9 different uniform combinations. A lot of teams have 5 or 6. A couple have north of 10. I now that I've been playing this for a while, I can't say that they nailed the depiction of every stadium or every single uniform perfectly. Some of that was, I think, an EA problem. Some of that was a Learfield problem. Some of that might have been a school problem. But overwhelmingly, across the board, big schools and small schools, they did depict a lot of those small details. The mantra that they shared with us during the development process was, we know that every team is somebody's favorite team. And so we want to give that a level of attention to everyone as best as we can. And I would look at this effort as a foundational piece as they continue to do that moving forward, right? There's a couple of things I think that some people might hope are in the game this year that aren't. Maybe they'll be in the game next year as they kind of build this thing out. But for the first game in a decade, I think it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And Matt, I'm curious, you kind of gave us a little bit of the intro, but at what point did you intentionally, in your mind, for all the success and accolades you've done on your own prior to this, at what point did you decide, I'm going to go full bore and make this game I'm going to corner the market in terms of news and the business of this game because you've done a great job of that in the 2+ years, as you mentioned earlier. And I'm curious, when did that switch flip for you, and was there anything in particular that did it for you?
Yeah, one, I appreciate those kind words. I don't remember if I've told this story on this channel here before, but I actually came into breaking news about the game by accident. I was working on a story because my audience are mostly folks that work in the college athletics industry or study it. I was working on a story back in, I think, 2021 about how multiple universities are starting to look to earn more revenue by creating licensed beers. And the way that a school would do that is that they'd partner with some local brewery to share the university IP to create the Pistol Pete Pale Ale or the Wolfpack. I don't even drink. I don't even know, right? Wolfpack whiskey or something, right? So I sent out a bunch of open records requests for some schools that I had heard were considering doing this to get a bunch of communications between the school and their licensing agents about non-apparel kind of properties. I thought, all right, this will be a small story here that a couple of licensing agents and some ADs might read and appreciate, and then we move on. And that's when I got a copy of the first video game proposal, which laid out when they expected the game to come out, on what platforms, how much they're paying the schools in licensing. It was like, I think, a 5-page memo. Nothing game breaking, nothing explaining like gameplay features or anything, but it was the document that laid out when the game was going to come out. And as soon as I saw that, I went, shoot, this is way more interesting than beer. So we're gonna. I think I tweeted just like one relatively picayune sentence, right? Like, okay, hey, according to this memo I obtained, the initial target release date is July 2023, which is true. This game came out a year later than it was originally projected. And then like I go to my kitchen to like do some dishes. I come back, my phone, it's got like 800 retweets. And that's when I realized, like, you know what? The audience demand for minutia for this project is so deep. And I probably have a bit different sourcing than my peers because I spend so much time writing about industry and licensing and agents and some of that space that I should continue to kind of pull at this thread and see what I can learn. And I've been fortunate that not only have people responded, but I've been able to kind of grow as a reporter.
With that, you have kind of become the preeminent guy on that subject. And I mean, obviously the work shows up, but you don't set out to be that guy, I don't guess, but it certainly is the way it has panned out, feels like.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way the being a reporter goes sometimes, right? A lot of this gig is about showing up. And it kind of depends on where the news cycle goes. But if you build relationships ahead of time and you're constantly there, then you're in a position to go where current events take you. And that's, I think, a little bit what happened here. The other thing that helped as I've reported on this, and I think as I continue to potentially write about games in college athletics, is I've made a computer game before. We made our own game, Athletic Director Simulator, which is available to Extra Point subscribers. And it's not a terribly complicated computer game. But that process, and then realizing how costs can expand beyond what you initially budgeted, or learning about what it's like to actually debug something, or try to figure out and pencil out this plan of how you make something fun, and how you respond when your audience or maybe your licensing partners feel differently. At a very small scale, I think helped inform the kind of questions I would ask to developers when I would go at EA, because I can speak on maybe a different level about what it's like to have to write up a different game design document about how to respond to your community. And a lot of my readership questions and some of the frustrations I think about all of this stem from the fact that the general public, I don't think, has a very sophisticated understanding of what it takes to make a computer game, to make a video game. I think people have a vague idea how much work it is to make a movie. You can see how much a movie budget is. They have a vague idea of what it takes to write a book. I don't think people really understand how to make a game. And so that's why when there's something that's imperfect or imprecise, maybe people fly off the handle a little bit more because they assume it's much easier than maybe it is. Yeah. And my background has maybe helped me a little bit show more empathy to the people behind the scenes.
Matt Brown of ExtraPointsMB.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Matt, what was your reaction? I guess it's been about 10 days or so ago when Arch Manning, who had so famously opted out of the game, puts out a YouTube video with Uncle Eli announcing that he is now in the game. What was your reaction? What was your response? Because it just screamed diva to me, and maybe I'm being a little harsh, but so I'll ask somebody who has a little bit more knowledge about the entire situation.
So it's interesting because Arch himself never came out and said, I don't want to be in the game. There were a few other reports that would anonymously quote people in the Manning camp. But Arch himself, to the best of my knowledge, was never directly quoted anywhere saying he didn't want to be in this. And as I talked to people at EA and with Open Doors that helped facilitate some of the secondary marketing contracts, and with One Team Partners, the company that handled the group licensing, the idea that Manning was going to opt out was news to all of them. They had created promotional graphics and materials for him to help showcase the game way back in like March, like a lot of other major players in the industry did. So it isn't totally clear to me whether this was a miscommunication somewhere, whether this was the Manning camp skillfully negotiating for a little bit of extra money and extra exposure for their clients, by holding out and trying to provide leverage. I don't know if it was something else entirely. The only thing that I know is from people I've spoken to in the licensing and EA industry, the feedback I've gotten was nobody thinks that it was Arch that was driving all of this. There are a handful of very good, productive college football players who aren't in the game right now. And I don't know to what extent how many of those were opting out versus they forgot to turn in their paperwork correctly versus agent miscommunications. I mean, we're looking at a player pool of nearly 12,000 people. These things are going to happen. But I don't feel like I have enough firsthand reported knowledge to say like this guy made a mistake one way or the other. At the end, it seems like he did pretty well for himself.
Let me ask you this. In the grand scheme of things, I mean, having Arch Manning in the game, obviously from a name standpoint, is probably huge. But the reality of it is, as we sit here on July 17th, he is at best a second string quarterback for the University of Texas. How big a deal is it that he is in the game?
Realistically, I don't think it really matters that much. And a big part of that is because unlike Madden or unlike other major AAA sports video games, the dominant mode that most consumers are going to be playing here is with Dynasty. And the whole crux of Dynasty is you're a coach and you're trying to rebuild a program and help it grow over multiple seasons. In 3 years, a couple of days in your simulation, Arch Manning's gone. He's off to the NFL or the CFL or Congress or whatever it is that he wants to do next. So he's not going to be in the game either way. Realistically speaking, somebody who plays as Texas is getting 1, maybe 2 seasons with the guy. Whereas if you play Madden, you're going to have Pat Mahomes as part of like your core experience for 8, 9, 10 plus years. You're going to spend the majority of your time playing with those current guys. I think if you're a Texas fan, it would have been a bummer not to have him. You would have had an AI generated guy that's not as good. But I don't think most of America would notice if a backup wasn't there on any position, particularly a quarterback.
Absolutely. And Matt, I appreciated the Tulane shout out because I am the offensive coordinator at Tulane at the moment. And so Rufus Steele is getting ready to take over as the offensive coordinator. But I wanted to ask you, prisoner of the moment, it seems like this is a smashing success beyond everybody's kind of wildest imaginations. What feedback, if any, have you heard from college football players or administrators? Have you got any instantaneous feedback on that community and kind of how they feel they are either portrayed or how the game has depicted them thus far?
Yeah, I imagine this is something I'm going to try to do some more reporting on when I get back late next week. What I do know is that many universities are trying to lean into this to create community and use this as an extension of their university branding efforts. And I think a school in particular to watch for doing this is going to be Kennesaw State, who recognizes, oh boy, there's going to be a bunch of gamers throughout the country who are nowhere near metropolitan Atlanta who are going to pick us as their first dynasty team. So let's explicitly lean into that and try to introduce ourselves to those people and say, okay, great. You are now committed to spending the next 12 hours of your life with the Kennesaw State Owls. Here's who we are. Here's why you should be fans of us moving forward. Here's what's great. about our program, besides the fact that it didn't exist 9 years ago and we're in a recruiting hotbed, and which I think is smart. I think FIU ought to do that. I think Akron ought to do that. And it's not a way of drawing attention to the fact that your team's probably going to stink this year. It's about meeting people where they are. I can think of off the top of my head about 6 different universities that are hosting launch parties on behalf of the game. A couple of them are using those fundraising efforts for their collectives, inviting people to come play the game against current players and show up and play it on the stadium big screen or in the basketball arena. And I imagine more schools are going to do that over the coming months. There's probably going to be a couple players who are like, I don't think that you got my haircut wrong or you got my ratings wrong. But it happens in Madden and it happens in NBA 2K2. And this is the first year that they've ever done this with real players. There's going to be some hiccups. But I imagine the response from the .edu email address crowd and the college sports industry crowd is going to be overwhelmingly positive.
It's a little disturbing to hear you mention Kennesaw State by name, as they are now members of Conference USA, which Middle Tennessee State, our alma mater, again, is also a member of. So hopefully somebody over on campus is listening to this and reacting accordingly. Maybe we will just send them a clip of this instead. Matt Brown, extrapointsmb.com, joining us here on Main Street Sports today. And Matt, before we let you go, a couple of things. One, you have referenced Madden on a couple of occasions. Wade and I were talking about the EA Sports game and mentioned that you said this isn't going to be as big as Madden. Is that still your stance?
You know, that's a great question. I was actually talking to a senior developer just a couple of days ago about the initial sales numbers. And the initial sales projections, both from the financial industry and internally at EA, were admittedly pretty conservative. And part of that was because there was a lot of uncertainty about this game, about how level of in-depth it was going to be, about how it was going to be reviewed immediately at launch, how big this market was. I think I can say without getting in trouble that the early commercial response for this game has exceeded quite comfortably those initial conservative expectations, right? Beforehand, I was hearing that, 2 million units would be a very good year. And now I'm hearing they think they could pretty comfortably exceed 2 million over the course of this cycle. I still believe Madden is going to sell more units, period. And part of that is just because of the NFL being a dramatically more popular culturally brand than college athletics, and that's not a pejorative towards college sports. That's just the shield, and also that the NFL and Madden are able to sell better internationally. And then for this year, where college this title is expected to have a pretty soft, only the hardest of the hardcore kind of audience outside of North America. But in a couple of years, perhaps that changes.
Yeah. Aside from gaming, Matt, I mean, obviously that is what you do, but it's not all you do with Extra Points and extrapointsmb.com. Earlier this week out in Dallas, and we'll be talking more about SEC Media Days later in the show, but Georgia coach Kirby Smart mentioned that the Georgia Collective has begun fining student athletes for indiscretions such as vehicular violations and the like. How much of a slippery slope is that?
It's a good question, and it's the sort of thing that I think any athlete who is an elite football or basketball recruit, top 300 football, top 100 basketball, the kind of person who is likely to sign a multi-year 6-figure plus contract with the collective. That person needs to absolutely make sure that they have independent counsel reviewing that to better understand what kind of flexibility or freedom a collective has to dock your pay based on not just athletic performance or academic performance or anything else. Like if you're a college coach and if you play in the NFL and in a couple of other private industry jobs, you might have something called a morals clause, which is like if you are convicted of a crime, if you are the subject of a very publicly embarrassing news story, if you do X, Y, or Z, that you might face, even if it's in your independent time. Yeah, you could face fines or dismissal or other penalties, right? But you have to make sure that group isn't just like claiming that right if it wasn't specifically stipulated in a contract. What also I think speaks to the very silly nature of college athletics right now, where you have a third-party entity that's paying the player. You have a third-party entity now that's handling what's really the most effective discipline of that player, but it's the coach that is controlling that player, right? Like the coach is the one that sets playing time. The coach is the one that sets the team rules. The coach is the one the guy has a relationship with. And then you have this independent group that's doing the difficult stuff the coach doesn't want to do. There's a reason we don't do it that way in literally any other sports entity in this country or anywhere else. It's because it's patently ridiculous. And we'll see as more and more judges examine how we run college sports in this country, what they think about that kind of relationship.
Matt Brown of ExtraPointsMB.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, and dropping knowledge to a level that, well, Wade can probably get to. Me, not so much. Matt, we appreciate you spending some time with us. Get some sleep.
All right. Thanks, friends.
Hey, Matt, I'm stand by later at some point. I've got you on the friends list. We're definitely going to have to get that game in. I'm working on in the lab right now, trying to not get blown out by you. So
listen, I am quite confident that once we get on the sticks, you guys are going to throw me into a garbage can. I'm a reporter. I'm good at making jokes online sometimes. I am not an offensive coordinator. Tulane would have fired me.
Who is the best team you've played as so far, Matt?
Well, the best team I've played is my alma mater, which is Ohio State. It's overwhelmingly the best statistical defense and has playmakers all over the field. My dynasty is not with Ohio State because I think anyone that starts with a 5-star team is someone that you should make fun of at parties. My current dynasty is with Utah State right now, and I am getting destroyed because it turns out you actually need lots of good offensive linemen if you want to be able to throw the ball downfield. Who knew? Not this guy.
Novel concept, right?
I know. Who knew? All right. Be well, fellas.
Hang in there, Matt. We appreciate it. When we continue on Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports today, presented by TOA of Columbia, we'll talk a little baseball. Stay tuned when we come back to the Lee Company studios after this.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, ZionEagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's ZionEagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
July 17th, 2001, Atlanta celebrates the retirement of Rico Brogna by blanking Tampa Bay 4-0 as Greg Maddux struck out 9 and scattered 6 hits in the complete game shutout. Brogna, playing through back issues, was hitting .248 with 3 homers and 21 RBIs in 72 games at the time of his announcement. Planned to return to his native Connecticut and accept a high school football coaching job after previously serving as an assistant. That was this day in Braves history. I don't know if Atlanta actually celebrated Rico Brogna's retirement, but I do remember he wasn't doing a whole lot at the time. So they signed Ken Caminiti. They reactivated Bernard Gilkey. They needed a roster spot, and an underperforming Rico Brogna. You know what? Maybe you ought to just go coach football. So, Jared Duran kind of rode to the rescue of the All-Star game last night. As you know, when we were talking about top 5 All-Star game moments yesterday, Wade mentioned the infamous tie in 01, I think it was. Well, the Boston Red Sox outfielder snapped a 3-3 tie with his 2-run homer late and gave the American League a 5-3 victory and obviously earned MVP honors in the process.
We've talked about how explosive this guy can be. And one of the honorable mentions for me yesterday was Ichiro hit a famous inside the park home run a couple years ago. And Duran is a guy, I mean, we've talked about on this show how if you get him at Fenway with those crazy, cavernous, kind of quirky bounces from that wall, it could be a triples paradise. And I knew he was good for a potential big play, but I didn't know that he would deliver to such a level that he did last night, as he stole the show for the AL.
He's electric. I mean, we talk about Ellie De La Cruz, but mostly because we probably see a little bit more National League ball in this area than we do American League. But I saw Duran in a couple of short 2-game series against the Braves, and he's pretty electric as well. And 5th inning 2-run homer off Hunter Green, speaking of electric, that held up yesterday. Obviously, there were some great moments. Maybe the biggest moment, though, kind of fizzled. Paul Skeens against the top of the American League order faced 4 batters thanks to Juan Soto drawing a 2-out full count walk after Stephen Kwan popped out and Gunnar Henderson grounded out back to Skeens. Soto draws a walk to get Aaron Judge to the plate, who promptly grounds out or grounds short for a fielder's choice to end the first inning on his first pitch from Skeens. So, you know, we saw a couple of 100-mile-an-hour fastballs from Skeens, but not nearly the drama that I think folks were hoping for when Skeens was being touted. as and drew the starting pitcher assignment for the National League in last night's game.
You're exactly right. And as I was leaving the gym last night, I pulled out my phone and I said, all right, here we go. This is what we're looking for. And I mean, he got the out, which was obviously the most critical part, but there was no real buildup, no real drama. And I'll be honest, once I got home and kind of started firing off on NCAA, I said, I'm going to wait and see if something really, really pops up to bring me back in. And nothing really ever did, you know. I mean, it was kind of a ho-hum all-star game. A lot of the box score is always hilarious to look at. Just the pitching log alone is great from both of the teams. And then with all the pinch hitters and things like that, pinch runners even, it's fun to look at. But the AL does get the win. And, yeah, it kind of just feels like it was devoid of some of the drama that we had hoped that we would really get throughout the course of the night.
One of the biggest moments, I guess, was Mason Miller, the Oakland closer, threw a perfect inning, and in that inning, he threw a 103.6 mile an hour fastball, which is being reported as the fastest pitch in an all-star game. So there's that. Miller was looking at your box score, Wade. He came in relatively early for a closer in particular. He got the win, though, so I guess he was in the fifth. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. He pitched a scoreless fifth with 2 strikeouts and, again, had that 103.6 fastball. He was the 5th of 6, 7, 8, 9 pitchers to work in the game. So each of those guys went an inning, including Texas reliever Kirby Yates, formerly of the Braves. Very interesting that he has gone back to Texas and really kind of revived himself out of the Rangers bullpen. Both Max Fried and Ronaldo Lopez got into yesterday's game. Chris Sale, obviously starting Sunday out at San Diego, did not. Fried was the second pitcher. He came in the second right behind Skeens, had a walk, but otherwise nothing in a scoreless second. Lopez threw a third of an inning in the 5th, closed the inning with a strikeout, and the other Braves representative, I believe, was hitless in his only at bat. Yes, Marcell Ozuna, 0 for 1. So, pretty much what you'd expect. Braves pitching continues to show up on the biggest stage, and Ozuna, not so much. But, you know, again, it's a great night. Everybody had a lot of fun, I'm sure.
Ohtani with a 3-run bomb for the NL runs.
Yeah, got them on the board early, and it turned out that was all they'd get. So, yeah. Unfortunate for the National League as they continue to struggle in this matchup. I think the American League has won, 10 of 11 maybe now? I don't know how it gets so one-sided, but clearly
it is fascinating, right? It seems like for a kind of a pure exhibition game where the talent you presume is pretty much equal, it always is kind of interesting regardless of the sport, but especially in this one where it feels like one team's kind of dominated.
Yeah, absolutely. Major League Baseball draft real quick. Finished up yesterday. There were about 25 guys with certainly in-state ties. 7 local kids, I think, that went, including Summertown's Grant Burleson going in the 18th round to the Astros yesterday. 4 guys out of Austin P. Pretty impressive. Pitcher Tyler Hampu, pitcher Titan Hayes went to Philadelphia. John Gazdar, a shortstop, was taken by the Cardinals, and Lyle Miller Green goes to the White Sox. So congrats to the Govs. Big showing up there. We've got some coverage of some of our local kids that were drafted on the website, Main Street preps.com. Be sure and check that out. Again, Tennessee with 8 guys going all in the first couple of days. I think Vanderbilt wound up with 7. Pretty good haul, again, locally. So congrats to all of those individuals as they embark on their professional careers. Most of them, maybe 1 or 2 will actually not get the number they're looking for and come back. But this is a great opportunity regardless to, as Grant Burleson said, to do what everybody dreams of doing when they start playing this game. So, congrats. That's going to do it for hour number 1 here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios, we'll talk a little real live college football. Stay tuned after this.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We are Main Street Sports Today. This is our number 2 of Wild and Wacky Wednesday, and we go back to Dallas. Day number 3 of the Southeastern Conference Media Days taking place right now. Alabama, Florida, Mississippi State, and Texas were scheduled to appear, and Texas might have been a little disappointed with some news that came out of yesterday's portion of SEC Media Days, as coordinator of officials John McDade was on the podium to start Tuesday's proceedings, and apparently the question was asked whether Texas opponents would be penalized for giving the horns down gesture, as was the case often in the Big 12. Just means more in the SEC yet again. The act itself needs to be offending to the senses. If you took that act out of a football stadium and did it in a shopping mall or a grocery store, would it offend the senses to a majority of the reasonable people in the area? That signal would not. You might have some people that share that signal with you if you did it at a grocery store or a shopping mall, depending where you are. We're going to evaluate it in context. So, no flags for horns down. Sorry, Texas.
Yeah.
Toughen up, Buttercup, you know?
Yeah, you got to keep a stiff upper lip. And, yeah, it depends on what mall, I guess, you're in. I don't know if I'm going down to downtown Austin or Houston or somewhere and just flashing the horns down and reasonably expecting to make it out alive. You probably would, but, why risk it, right?
Yeah, right.
Personally, you go to Arkansas and – you're going to have the whole mall, not just throwing the horns down, but they'll be calling the pigs with you at the same time. So, I mean, I always found it just fascinating. And it kind of goes back to, at least to me, kind of just the fact that the Big 12 was kind of, I'm not going to say coddling Texas, but they realized that they were the cash cow and they would do whatever they had to do to kind of protect them. And the SEC, on its surface, to me, this seems like the SEC is like, hey, guess what? We got 16 teams. You're one of them. You don't get any protections. I mean,
Yeah. Get used to it. It's a new day. I mean, it's kind of like recruiting, Wade, where coach comes in your house and tells you how great you are and everything else. And then all of a sudden you get to campus and wait, he was so nice. What happened?
Yep.
So
yeah. And Texas will kind of strong arm its way into, being a full-fledged accepted, member of the SEC. But the SEC, even Vanderbilt, has got just a tiny little bit of extra pep in their step saying, hey, we've been here longer than you guys. I mean, even for a few days at least, or weeks even, Vanderbilt kind of can puff its chest out a little bit. Some of these other schools can do that. And so I'll tell you what is fascinating, that Texas was speaking just a moment ago, and we talked about Belichick being back on the coverage, and we've talked about Saban. And I'm not saying that Saban looked scared or glad that he made the decision he made, but he kind of looked like he was really glad he didn't have to go up against this Texas team again this year when they had him on the set down in Dallas just a moment ago.
I think he's pretty relieved. Meanwhile, I wonder what Kalen DeBoer looked like, because he was on the podium earlier today as well, I believe. So it's going to be different. It's going to be different in the SEC between Texas and Oklahoma coming in, and Saban being gone, and DeBoer coming in, and it'll be different.
Yeah, for a league that kind of feels like the pecking order and everything, the status quo was kind of in check. In terms of football, yeah, it feels like everything is up for grabs now. Saban's gone. Texas, Oklahoma coming in. Ole Miss, as we've talked about, has expectations. I mean, things are just kind of wild right now in terms of the SEC football landscape. It feels like entering this fall.
One thing that does feel like a constant is Georgia. And we saw some Heisman odds earlier this week, and Georgia signal caller Carson Beck and Dylan Gabriel, formerly of Central Florida, formerly of Oklahoma, now of Oregon, topping the list as favorites for this year's Heisman. And if you're looking for a favorite as a running back, don't. The top 6 at this point are all quarterbacks: Quinn Ewers, Will Howard of Ohio State, Nico Iamaleava, I think I got that right, and Alabama's Jalen Milroe are your top 6 prospects for the Heisman according to FanDuel. and again, all of them quarterbacks.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit, right, with Ollie Gordon. You know, he was kind of maybe the one that was hoping to bust through and break through as a non-QB to win this thing. And then with his troubles off the field, it feels like he quickly was kind of shuffled off the stage there. This will be a fun race. You know, Gabriel has a chance to really put up some numbers. I know Bo Nix did a great job there, but it feels like Gabriel is capable of putting up those, video game type numbers at Oregon that Nix was close, but it feels like he will certainly be in the mix. And it's crazy to think about Nico with one career start under his belt is the fifth best Heisman hopeful at this moment.
Will Howard transfers in from where? Kansas State?
I think that is correct. Yes.
That's wild. It's wild to me that a Kansas State quarterback is better than anything that Ohio State had on the roster.
This is the one position that Matt probably would have backed us up here. This is the one position that Ohio State is loaded as they are everywhere else. This is one of the first years that they kind of have a little bit of a question mark at the QB position. And it's funny, right? Because we're not talking about this conversation with Will Howard whatsoever if he's wearing a Kansas State jersey. I don't think.
No.
He ain't producing to that level. But you got to have the team success kind of component that goes with it a little bit. And so the fact that he's got OSU and the Buckeyes on his jersey there, it's going to carry him a little bit of ways as well.
You know, and here's what's wild to me. Carson Beck, when you talk about the team aspect of it, I think that he benefits as much from the folks around him as anybody on this list.
No doubt. I mean, he's a good quarterback. I rate him as a pretty solid QB, but same deal, right? If Carson Beck is at South Carolina, I don't know that he's topping this list or even sniffing this list
right.
as much of production as he might be able to produce. And as a result, you know, we see what we get. Shedeur Sanders probably just off the cusp of this list too, and he kind of suffers from that too. He could go out and produce the most insane numbers you've ever seen, but Colorado, I think, is just going to be so bad again this year in terms of just win-loss record that's going to keep him. He's not even already on this kind of short list of odds that we're looking at here.
That said, how do you feel like his teammate Travis Hunter fares as far as the Heisman goes, just from the standpoint that this is a guy who can impact the game, you know, both offensively and defensively, and can, you know, do some things on his own, relatively speaking?
You know, he could go. I mean, it would be a little bit of a reverse, but, you know, you could maybe make the case, yeah, he could be the more likely candidate than Sanders from those two teams to get a potential invite or, you know, be in the mix. Kind of go the Charles Woodson approach, right? You know, producing on both levels. And Michigan's got one of the best cornerbacks in all of college football this year, Will Johnson. He's actually the top-rated player on the entire game this year. Quick plug there. But he's not playing offense, right? So you got to be able to do both. And Hunter, that's what makes him so fascinating and so fun to watch, is he is pretty doggone good on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked yesterday. I mentioned that Shedeur used Travis to beat Travis on EA Sports over the weekend. So, I mean, that's as much of a hat tip as any, I would think.
I'd say keep your eyes on Milroe, too, just because Alabama, I think, will probably win enough games that – and if they're winning games, I feel like Milroe is going to be the reason that they're winning the games.
Right. He's going to be in the middle of it if they are winning games. So, yeah, I think that's probably a good call as well. Troy receiver Chris Lewis, it's been announced, will miss the 2024 season as he has been diagnosed with cancer and is currently undergoing treatment. Had a tumor removed from his left femur, is expected to work this year as a student assistant once he gets back to school. Third team All Sun Belt selection last year after transferring from Kentucky, caught 32 balls for 735 yards and 10 touchdowns for the Trojans last fall. Troy advanced to the Sun Belt Championship game. Had a couple of 100-yard games, one against Western Kentucky, which is always good, and one against South Alabama. You hate this, but hopefully they've caught it, and he's going to be able to get back on the field and continue his career there. But wishing Chris Lewis down at Troy the best. We don't like wishing Troy the best, but we certainly want to wish Chris Lewis the best. So
yeah, tough situation there, and his services will definitely be missed because you're talking about a lot of production there.
Yeah, absolutely. For a team that, again, has some expectations in the Sun Belt this time around. So be something to keep an eye on there. We talked about MTSU and Conference USA's media day next week out in Frisco, and we had some question about who was going, so I just wanted to get back and clear that up real quick. Nick Vadiato, Devin Curtis, the linebacker from Brentwood Academy, and Brendan Harris, safety, who played his high school ball down at Baylor in Chattanooga before signing originally with Wake and transferring back to MTSU. Those are the three guys that will be accompanying Coach Derek Mason for his first trip to Conference USA Media Day Tuesday out at the PGA of America headquarters in Frisco. So should be a good time out there for them. Let's go ahead and take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios, we'll talk a little NASCAR with Heather Williams of WCYB TV out of Johnson City. So stay tuned after this break.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Wild and Wacky Wednesday continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. In the final segment, we will be bringing you the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news we can find from across the globe, so stay tuned for that. But right now, we are visiting with our NASCAR analyst, Heather Williams of WCYB-TV out of Johnson City. Actually, we are not visiting with Heather Williams because she's not here yet.
Should make a quick pit stop.
Nice. But we will be talking about Pocono and Ryan Blaney, whose name we have invoked a bit here of late. Getting into the winner's circle up at Pocono this past weekend, his second win of the season, and was relatively dominant, I guess. Finished ahead of Denny Hamlin, Alex Bowman, William Byron, and Joey Logano. They rounded out the top 5 in this one. So,
yeah, and I'm reading through some kind of winners and losers. Obviously, Blaney is the big winner, and I'm going to save some of these for Heather. But there's a couple of losers in this thing because as we kind of get closer toward the end of the season, Heather's kind of told us, right? I mean, these wins get a little more important, but on the other end of the spectrum, a bad finish could be disastrous for depending on who that is and where they kind of sit in the pecking order.
Right. All right. So yeah, Blaney takes Pocono. Next up is Indianapolis this weekend, and we will get Heather's thoughts on both right now. Heather Williams, happy Wednesday. She's still efforting. Strike 2 on me.
You can't rush greatness, she says. So,
there we go. We'll
let her ease into it here for a recap from the Tricky Triangle.
The Tricky Triangle. I like it. I know that wasn't original, but I still like it.
That was straight from Wikipedia and NASCAR lore, my friend.
Okay. You said your mom's a big NASCAR fan, right?
Yeah, big fan. Not as much as back in, the Intimidator and Dale Jarrett type days, but she still likes to turn on the race. I really, I've never asked her this, I guess, directly, but I think she likes turning it on just because it gives her an excuse to take a little bit of a nap on Sunday afternoons. Kind of like, a lot of people watch golf on Sundays. It gives you a little bit of a nice little excuse to zone out and zonk out a little bit. But I think she enjoys, she definitely enjoyed, waking up. That's the beauty, right? You watch the start, you take a nap in the middle, and you can watch the end, and you kind of still feel like you know exactly what happened.
And you don't feel like you missed a whole lot. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Okay. Talking a little bit more about the Tricky Triangle. It's Heather Williams from WCYB-TV in Johnson City. Heather, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. So the last few weeks, you probably noticed that we have this podcast studio now. I'm the only person that's known how to use it. And apparently somebody else found out because I came around the corner to come on here and somebody else was in here. So I had to kick them out. But we're good.
Did you pull a Cartman on them? Get out.
No, I pulled seniority. Like, get out.
There we go.
No, I'm like they were finished.
Whatever works. Hey, Blaney wins at Pocono.
Yeah. All of a sudden, at the beginning of the year, we were talking about how Fords, were they in trouble? What was wrong with Fords? Now they're the hottest thing coming. Every other week, a Ford is winning. I think they've won something like 5 of the last 7 races and the All-Star race. So, the Fords and Penske specifically, they got it going on.
Second win for him in a short period of time, right?
Yeah, that he won at Iowa, and then which was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then this win here. So yeah, they're starting to heat up in the summer, which tends to be the case with the Fords. They do tend to get a little better once the summer gets going. And here is the summer, and here they are.
Okay. All right. Wade was talking about winners and losers, and obviously Blaney, with his second win of the season, ranks as one of the winners coming out of Pocono. Safe to say that Ross Chastain was one of the losers?
Yeah, your boy Ross Chastain's probably one of the big losers, and just by default kind of makes Bubba one of the winners, right? Because going into Pocono, it looked like, Bubba was going to need to win to get in. He was pretty far back on the points behind Ross, and going to a track in Pocono that's not been a very good track for Bubba. But then all of a sudden, Ross has issues. He finishes, back in the 30s. Bubba has a top 10, and all of a sudden things have gotten a little tight for Ross Chastain to get that second Trackhouse car into the playoffs.
As they continue on, yeah, we obviously were disappointed by the effort from Chastain, and that race gets a lot tighter. And Heather, that's something that Mo and I were kind of going over just before you joined us, is it just feels like, even if, for somebody that's not watching every week, it feels like you can just almost feel the intensity ramping up every single race. And have we reached kind of the fever pitch point, or is there still a few more weeks to go before we kind of get to that ultra critical stage in your mind for certain guys?
Oh, it's going to get way crazier. I mean, one of the great things, and it's not going to happen exactly as the cutoff race this year because of the Olympic break, but one of the great things is going to Daytona and needing a win, because you want to talk about crazy on crazy. Being desperate to get in and then being at a place like Daytona makes you crazy. Now, this year it's actually the second to the last race because of the cutoff, before the cutoff, because of the Olympics. But the cutoff race is Darlington, which is no slouch either. Things can definitely get insane at Darlington. So no, I mean, it is definitely ramping up, because each week you haven't increased your points lead, or you haven't locked in with the win, you become more and more desperate. And so, no, I mean, yes, it's intense, but I don't think you've seen anything yet. It's about to get really wild over the summer.
I find that fascinating. And then, as you mentioned, kind of that 2-week break for the Olympics, I was kind of trying to kind of wrap my brain around that, and I was just doing some Googling. What can you tell us about Daniel Suarez? Is he going to be competing kind of in a different competition? Am I reading that correct, during that break? And if so, kind of shed more light on that, please.
Yeah, he's going to go compete. I believe it is in NASCAR Brazil race, just spreading the sport to other countries. As a guy who's from Mexico, who is, kind of the marquee Latin American, Hispanic driver in NASCAR, he really, really takes it personally to grow the sport in that part of the world. And so I think it's just going to be a good opportunity for him to go down and to be in person with the fans, and for them to really see him and grow the sport internationally. And I think it's a little bit of a precursor to, I think it's no secret that NASCAR wants to have a international race next year. It might be Mexico, it could be Canada, but just getting their drivers in other countries, and then hopefully eventually bringing the sport itself in the Cup Series to other countries.
Heather Williams, WCYB TV, joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, as we talk a little NASCAR. Again, we're kind of coming down the home stretch in terms of playoffs. We've got the Brickyard 400 this weekend at Indy, and then 4 more races? You said Darlington is the cutoff race. Is that right?
Darlington is the cutoff race. Yeah, we have I believe 5 races until the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Is that what you said?
Yeah. You've got Indy this weekend. You've got the 2-week break, and then you've got the Cookout 400 at Richmond. You've got the Firekeepers Casino 400 at Michigan. You've got the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona, and then you've got the Cookout Southern 500 at Darlington over Labor Day weekend. So Cookout, pretty prominent coming down the stretch.
I think we've talked about this before
here.
too. I've never eaten at Cookout.
What? Yeah, I think we have talked about that because I think that was the reaction. Yeah. We have 12 drivers that are qualified for the playoffs. Am I reading this right?
Yeah, that anyone who's got a win. So I believe it. Yes, I believe
Okay.
it's 12.
So Martin Truex, Ty Gibbs, Chris Buescher, and Ross Chastain currently round out the top 16. Bubba Wallace is the first driver out right now. So Ross sitting right there on that cut line, and definitely kind of an endangered species, as you mentioned, in trying to
And
get
not
that.
a comfortable place to be, just from the fact that you've got so many drivers behind him that can win races. I mean, Bubba, especially when you look at Daytona and there was another race in there, Indy, some of the bigger tracks, he's definitely capable of getting a win there. And then when you in Michigan, and then you look at Kyle Busch, who's capable of winning anywhere. You look at Todd Gilliland, who's been red hot of late, although he didn't have a great Pocono. There's some names back there that if I'm those last 4 drivers on points, just because there's so many guys that can win races, I'm not comfortable at all. And Martin Truex knows this all too well. He finished 4th in the regular season points 2 years ago and missed the play. There were 15 winners and only 1 driver got in on the points.
Ooh.
Yeah, we had the same reaction. Heather, I'm curious, kind of while we're talking about jockeying for playoff position and kind of maybe who gets in or who needs what as we come down the next little stretch here, kind of blowing things up big picture wise, is there a rookie of the year official award? And if so, maybe who are some candidates in your mind? Who's maybe impressed you in their first year or maybe even their second year on the circuit thus far?
Yeah, there is a rookie of the year. Ty Gibbs won it last year. I think at this point in the season, the favorite is probably, and I haven't looked at the points, so I'm just going off my head because there's actually a point system for this, but I'm guessing Carson Hocevar is leading the points in rookie of the year. He's, at least to the eye test, college football fans should be familiar with the eye test. He is the guy that is the clear cut head and shoulders rookie so far this year. Zane Smith, who's also running for the Rookie of the Year, he's come on the last couple of weeks, but he's been slow at the start, but he's running really well now. Those was really the two top rookies this year, but I would say Carson Hocevar is probably going to be Rookie of the Year. If you take back to the last 2 years, Ty Gibbs, as you mentioned, is in the playoffs right now. He is probably the guy, if you polled people in the garage area, who's the next guy that's going to get their first win? He's the guy that most people would vote for, is Ty Gibbs. He's right there. He's run very consistently, especially earlier in the year. He looked like he was knocking on the door of wins. He's cooled off a little bit through the summer, but he's been able to maintain a big enough points lead that he's stayed in the playoffs. So first-year drivers, I would say Carson Hocevar. Second-year drivers would definitely be Ty Gibbs.
And then kind of obviously Gibbs, it seems like kind of maybe the answer to this question, but what goes into or does any guy kind of have extra staying power? I guess where I'm going with this is, how does this group of rookies or young drivers, are we witnessing anybody in particular that could be a household name really going forward in the next couple of years in your mind?
I mean, Gibbs for sure. I mean, he had a lot of success and fast. I mean, his rookie year, when he won Rookie of the Year in the Xfinity Series, he was really only supposed to run a handful of races, and he won like two of the first 3 races or something that he ran in. So they decided to put him in the car more. He was running for an ARCA Series championship at the time. So he's a guy that very quickly has risen. He's obviously an outstanding equipment. His grandfather's team, they are always full of contenders, no matter who's in the car. So obviously he's got good equipment. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. And I do think Carson Hocevar has the potential to be that. He's in kind of an upstart team in Spire Motorsports, but Spire's been wheeling, dealing, acquiring teams, acquiring equipment, acquiring the top garage workers in the garage, top crew chiefs. So if they can keep on that upward trajectory and continue to put the cars under Carson and really grow so that team is competitive, Carson certainly has the talent to be that guy.
Heather Williams joining us here on Main Street Sports today, talking a little NASCAR. Heather, with a break coming, a 2-week break coming following Indianapolis this weekend, and then 4 more races to the playoffs, Is there a perceived pressure on this race in particular this weekend, just from a standpoint that, you don't want to go into that 2-week layoff and have to, deal with all the heartburn of, man, we got to get a win. How big is this weekend specifically in light of that?
Well, I think that you certainly don't want to lose ground, right? If you're Ross Chastain, you certainly don't want to let Bubba get closer to you or let him catch you in the playoffs going into this, because then, it's like going into the offseason or going into your bye week with momentum, right? You certainly don't want to give him that. But if you are Bubba or you are Todd Gilliland or Kyle Busch or one of these other guys trying to get in, you certainly don't want to go the opposite way. You don't want to sit around and think about 2 weeks how you wrecked on the first lap of Indy and gave up a whole bunch of ground in the playoffs. So, but I think Indianapolis specifically, at one time that racetrack was considered one of the crown jewels of NASCAR. You had the Daytona 500, the Coke 600, the Southern 500, and the Brickyard 400 were considered kind of the 4 crown jewels. They moved off the oval track the last couple of years, moved onto the road course at Indy because the previous generation car didn't run very well on the big track. So they made that move, and it took a little bit of the luster out of Indy. But I think guys are really excited this year because they are back on the Brickyard, on the oval at Indy. And people that know and understand racing, understand the history, and really value the Indy 500 track or the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as a track. Brickyard 400 is very important to NASCAR drivers. So I think that in and of itself is enough for most drivers to want to perform well this weekend.
Heather, I'm curious, scrolling through Wikipedia, I always love to just kind of read about the history of the track and kind of go back and remember bits and pieces. I remember Jeff Gordon was obviously very successful here, but I'm looking, is this Chevy had 17 wins, and this is just mind-blowing against Wikipedia, so I'm going to lean on you for some expertise. But from 2003 to 2014, a Chevrolet car won this race. Is that true? And if so, why were they so dominant during that stretch? Because you're right, this is one of the premier crown jewels, as it were, from back in the day.
I think it's just because Chevy was so dominant, right? They had Gordon. They had, during that time, they had Jimmy Johnson during that time. They just had a lot of the premier drivers during that time. And as a crown jewel, taking Daytona out of the mix is a crown jewel because the nature of super speedway racing is just so random anyway that a lot of guys have won that race that maybe don't win again, like a Trevor Bayne or Derek Cope had 2 wins. But along those same lines, it's just a little more random. The rest of the other 3 crown jewels, generally the top guys in the garage area, the premier drivers, are the ones that win those races because everybody brings their A game. And obviously, if your A game is better than my A game, you at your best is going to be better than me at my best. So I think that's why. It's just because they had the best drivers in the garage area at that time, and the best drivers usually rise to the top at the biggest races.
It's unfortunate that Jeff Gordon obviously won't be running because he wins in 94. He wins in 2004, and then he wins again in 2014. I feel like he might just be able to show up and just win on reputation alone here in 2024, considering he's won in all the years that ended in 4 up until this point.
Hey, if I'm William Byron, I'm feeling pretty good about it because he could just say the 24 cars won all those years. He just keep that streak going.
Just keep the mojo flowing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What do you like? What are you looking for at Indy this weekend?
I'm looking to see how the next gen car performs. As we said, this will be the first time that they've run the next gen car on the oval. And so on the bigger tracks, the next gen car has put on some really good racing. So it seems like that should be, a good indication of where this car is. And I think it'll be a really good race. I look for, I say this a lot, but particularly on this track, the drivers that have been there, done that, generally do really well. In his last year, I wouldn't be surprised if Truex has a good run just because it's a crown jewel and he kind of needs a win. I think you look at, obviously, Denny Hamlin hasn't been that good in the past, but I think he could be. I think Kyle Larson, He's won there before. He's a guy to look out for. Maybe a Chase Elliott. The guys that have been around the block and have run on the oval configuration specifically, those are the guys I'd watch out for this weekend.
Absolutely. Heather Williams of WCYB TV out of Bristol, joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, talking a little NASCAR. But before we let you go, Heather, Wade and I were talking a little college football yesterday, as we are wont to do. And in this case, college football kind of morphed into high school football. Tell us what you know about Sullivan East assistant football coach Hal Mumme.
You like that, don't you? So it's my understanding, and I have not had a chance to talk to the head coach at Sullivan East yet about this. My understanding that he hung around the program and helped out. He's friends with one of the assistant coaches, like family friends, because obviously the assistant coaches there are not of the same generation of Hal Mumme, but he's family friends with one of the assistant coaches. So he was kind of hanging out a little bit. They had a really high-level quarterback last year in Drake Fisher, who coincidentally signed today to play at Presbyterian. He broke pretty much every record at Sullivan East. So he was kind of hanging around, helping them with their air raid offense, because they were running that offense at East because they had this prolific quarterback. And so he has just decided to stay around this year and help out as like a special assistant to the program this year.
That can't hurt.
No, it cannot hurt. It cannot hurt. And let me tell you, we're working on we do high school football games live on our air during the season. And so we're working on a preview show with all the coaches, and Sullivan East is not playing on our games this year. They're actually probably not going to be very good because they lost their best two players, that quarterback and their tight end transferred to Science Hill. The tight end is going to Colorado. But but the other coaches were sitting there in the green room waiting for this show, and they were all talking about that. Have you heard? Have you heard? What do you know about Hal Mumme? What do you know about Hal Mumme being at Sullivan East? So it certainly got people's attention. Even if the football's not very good this year because they've lost a lot in the way of talent, I think people will be interested in watching just to see Hal Mumme.
It seems like a classic tale of Tennessee, but really East Tennessee. Once it kind of gets you, it takes hold of you. And it seems like Hal just said, you know what, I just like it here. Maybe I'll just putting a little roots here for a year or two.
Yeah, it's so true. Time and time again, I heard that story. There was actually an NHRA driver who's from California who has been looking for several years for property here because he wants this to make this his off-season home. So once it gets you, it gets you. I stayed here much longer than I thought I would. When I moved to Chattanooga in 2000, just gave away my age a little bit. I didn't think I was going to stay here that long, but I left and came back.
Well,
and we're glad you did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not a bad place to be.
No, it's a great place to be. The scenery, the mountains, I love it. That's why I came back.
And you're how far from the track?
My apartment is 3 miles.
So, I mean, you couldn't beat that. So,
no.
Being a gearhead like you are, I mean, that's nearly paradise, I would think. So,
yeah, I wouldn't go anywhere else except for maybe Charlotte.
There you go.
That's about the next biggest race town that I know.
Heather Williams, our NASCAR analyst from WCYB TV in Johnson City, breaking things down. Heather, we appreciate it. We will touch base with you next week, and we will see what the 2-week break looks like at that point. So thanks for taking some time with us today.
Always, guys. Talk to you later.
Thank you, Heather.
All right. When we return to Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, it is Wild and Wacky Wednesday. Wade and I will bring you the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from across the globe when we return to the Lee Company studios after this.
Bluegrass Auction Associates is hosting another estate auction in White House, Tennessee on Saturday, July 20th at 10 a.m. Join Bluegrass as they sell the Judy Matthews Honeycutt Estate, conveniently located in the scenic Orchard Park subdivision. This beautiful estate includes both real estate and personal property, so everything must go. Everything will be sold on-site and in person, and a 10% buyer's premium is added to the final bid. So bid with confidence with Bluegrass Auction Associates, committed to excellence.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
It's Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes. And this is the final segment of today's show, which means it is time for Wild and Wacky Wednesday, as we bring you the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from across the globe. We're going to start across the pond in England. Wade, the term the GOAT has been kind of co-opted, I guess, greatest of all time, GOAT, GOAT. Apparently, we have the GOAT of GOATs. King Charles III has bestowed a royal title on a rare golden goat breed. From now on, the breed, known for its connection to the Isle of Guernsey, will have the special title of Royal Golden Guernsey Goat. Bestowed yesterday during the King's visit to the island in the English Channel, and will apply to any Guernsey goat anywhere in the world.
Now that, talk about a come up. I mean, imagine that, Mo. You're just sitting there kind of minding your own business, and then now all of a sudden, boom, you are the GOAT of goats.
The GOAT of goats. You are a royal goat. Crown me.
And the rare golden. I mean, this is a perfect fit, right? I mean, like I said, I'm just picturing, this one particular goat. He's just out having a good time, doing his goat day-to-day chores, and then boom, King Charles shows up and says, "You know what? You're not just any goat. You're the GOAT of goats.
You are the
Royal
goat,
Golden Guernsey
goat. That's it. The goats are a rare breed and considered at risk on the rare breeds watch list. Considered friendly and docile, they produce good milk. I never thought docile and goat, for one thing, but okay.
Now the question is, and people on the internet, they like to do this. I've done this once before, but everybody on the internet likes to go crazy. How long before we get the royal goat or the goat of goats involved with the goat yoga craze? Because that's hot in the streets, and you're already paying a pretty good premium to do this stuff. So I feel like there's a real market here, Mo. I'm not saying me and you are, on Shark Tank next week or anything, but I feel like there's a market here for us to get involved with the goat of goats doing the goat yoga with folks.
Royal goat yoga. There we go.
I mean, that kind of rolls off the tongue to me.
Christopher Price, the chief executive of the Rare Breeds Survival Trust, said the honor offers recognition of the breed's historical significance and its value to biodiversity, the environment, and sustainable food production. Being choosy in what they eat, their grazing can provide very specific environmental benefits, according to Price. We are extremely grateful to His Majesty for his continued, greatly valued support for British rare native livestock and equine breeds. So, congratulations to the Royal Golden Guernsey Goat. The goat of goats.
Well deserved. And yeah, LeBron James could never, right? I mean,
he could even less never nowadays than maybe a month ago. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Staying overseas or going west from the Americas instead of east, perhaps. I don't really know how to get into this, but to say a New Zealand art museum was showing artworks of Pablo Picasso that turned out to be knockoffs painted by the curator of the exhibit, Kersha Cashley, was revealing herself, or did reveal herself, as the creator of some works that were showing at Tasmania's Museum of Old and New Art, MONA. After receiving questions from a reporter and the Picasso administration in France regarding the authenticity of the works, but not before. They had been hung for like 3 years, and they were hung in an exhibit restricted to women's visitors, which provoked a gender discrimination lawsuit. In answer to said lawsuit, Cashley created a women's restroom around the area where the paintings were being shown in order to continue the women's only exhibit. This went on for 3 years.
Yeah, this has got the makings of like a TV show or a movie plot. I love this story. And producer Mark mentioned Banksy on the show a couple weeks ago. This kind of reminds me of like a Banksy. This has got to be one of the, you wouldn't necessarily think about it, one of the cooler feelings, right? Is you're bringing everybody into your exhibit and everybody's oohing and ahhing and taking selfies and doing all kinds of crazy things and saying, I'm next to a Picasso. And then deep down, only one, maybe a few key people know. You're just pointing. You're like,
you're not.
That's not a Picasso.
No, you're not. The saga began when Cashley created a women's only area at MONA in 2020 for visitors to revel in the pure company of women, and as a statement on their exclusion from male-dominated spaces throughout history. The so-called ladies' lounge offered high tea, massages, and champagne served by male butlers and was open to anyone who identified as a woman. Outlandish and absurd title cards were displayed alongside the fake paintings, antiquities, and jewelry that was quite obviously new and in some cases plastic. The lounge had to display the most important artworks in the world, Cashley wrote, in order for men to feel as excluded as possible. It worked. Again, Mona was ordered by the Tasmanian Civil and Administrative Tribunal earlier this year to stop refusing men entry to the ladies' lounge after a complaint from a male gallery patron who was upset at being barred from the space during the 2023 visit. At this point, rather than admit men to the exhibit, Cagely installed a working toilet in the space, turning it into a women's restroom in order to exploit a legal loophole to allow the refusal of men to continue.
The men are saying, we're coming in, and then
no, you're not.
She says, no, not here, because this
not.
is now a restroom.
It's a restroom. Yeah. Goodness gracious. I mean, this is being committed to the fraud. I mean, that's craziness. And so eventually she admits that these are actually her works and not Picasso's. So I don't know if she's going to face charges for fraud or anything like that, or how that works. The Picasso administration did not immediately respond to a request for comment on this, but this is wild and wacky.
That's where I'm picturing, like a movie plot where, she's collected all this money and is now maybe off to Switzerland or somewhere, and just living this life. And everybody's like, wait a second, all these photos I've been posting on Instagram of these Picassos are frauds. I kind of love the plot there.
Coming soon to a theater near you.
Yeah. We could workshop a screenplay out of that for sure.
For sure. Finally, from South Africa, 10-foot sub as in submarine sandwich, made by a local restaurant with a taste for the supersize. The Gatsby sub is what it's called, because the original sandwich came out at about the same time as the movie The Great Gatsby. But this sandwich, made at Annie's Ladies Bar in Cape Town, weighed in at 145 pounds, 10 layers of fillings, took over 4 hours to prepare, included 6.5 pounds of tomatoes, 44 pounds of meat, from sliced sausage to steak to burger patties and chicken fillets, 3 layers of French fries, weighing 22 pounds total, and a layer of calamari for those who prefer seafood.
Inclusive. I like that.
Topped by a generous helping of onion rings.
Holy mama.
It sounds tasty. The size of it is a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Intimidating, I guess. But it took 140 people to eat it.
Yeah, this even for man versus food, this is a challenge that one person would struggle with. And I'm a little disappointed that this does not reside in the United States, because, I mean, for all of our, exploits and over the top with things, especially food, how are you going to get outdone by a lady in South Africa? I mean, come on.
No doubt. It is not the biggest sandwich in Guinness Book of World Records history, because a grill in Roseville, Michigan, put together a 5,440 pound sandwich in 2005. So, but it looked good.
I'd take a bite.
Maybe we could whip up our own. Yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for Wild and Wacky Wednesday. That's going to do it for Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Come back tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Wade and I will both be here, and we look forward to seeing you. Y'all have a great rest of your hump day.